I mean, we're excited to take a look at that and the other three companies.
Yep. All right. Well, let's talk about some May retail sales because looks stronger than the headlines show. And after seeing headlines from several media outlets, I was worried that May retail sales were slowing to a problem point where we got problems showing up here. But compared to April, sales did fall 0.9%, which was larger than the expectation for a decline of 0.6%. But it's just like that's only the surface, and you just read. This is why you get in trouble reading headlines.
Oh yeah,
read headlines. Oh my gosh, things are terrible. You got to dig into the meat.
Yeah, and I was working from home on Tuesday because my daughter was actually born on Father's Day. So
yes, we've been waiting. Finally.
So I was a little bit out of it Monday, Tuesday, and I'm going through the news, catching up what's going on, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's not good. And then you kind of start digging through the numbers here, and I just got to point out, and we knew this was going to happen. Consumers, they rushed to auto dealers in April to try and beat those tariffs, and that led to a 3.5% decline in motor vehicle and part dealers when comparing sales in the month of May to April. Not surprised by that. Also, we talk about gas stations. They've also been seeing declining sales largely due to lower gas prices, and they fell 2% when compared to the previous month. If you exclude those two, I'm going to say volatile categories, sales actually would have fallen just 0.1% when compared to April. Not bad at all. I mean, but again, I was reading the headlines, and I was like, oh, it's like, oh, the consumer is starting to buckle. And it's like, well, I don't know about that.
and if I would bet there's people know, except for California, gas prices have gone down. But I bet you they don't make that relationship to saying that's part of retail sales. I think when people think of retail sales, they think of grocery stores and everything else. They don't think about the gas sales as part of retail sales.
Actually, I heard this comment on YouTube saying, what is this idiot saying? Everything's gone up, the price of beef and the price of gas. And I'm like, well, I don't make up the CPI numbers. I look at the data here. And maybe, this gas station you go to, maybe their prices haven't fallen. But you look again on the national scale, gas prices have fallen, especially look year over year. I know you get into that too.
Yeah, exactly. And while the month-over-month numbers point to a slowing consumer, when we look at the annual comparisons, this is very important. The numbers, well, they're actually impressive. And think about this year over year. Headline, retail sales climbed, didn't decline, but climbed 3.3% compared to last May of 2024. But if we exclude motor vehicle and parts dealers and gas stations, these numbers get amazing. Sales climbed 4.6%, and this was largely impacted by the 6.9% annual decline at gas stations. And this is why many times a small investor loses out because they read the headline, they don't understand what's really going on, they sell, shouldn't be selling, and depending on what you have, obviously, but they sell, and then things went up. What did I know? You didn't get the meat. That's why we do the Smart Investing Show, to help people out.
And we say this time and time again. And, this gentleman on YouTube that's like, oh, beef prices. I'm like, yeah, maybe beef prices are up. But you can't just pick one thing. I mean, You could have talked about when inflation was slowing and egg prices were up like 60%. It's like, oh, my gosh, inflation is terrible because egg prices are up. Even when inflation is in check, you will be able to find categories that are having difficulties. So, I mean, you can't pinpoint one little specific data point. You have to really kind of view out here and look at the big picture because that's what's important. That's what drives the economy, not prices for individual items. It's, again, on the mass scale here is what we want to look at, is that's going to give you a better guide for the economy going forward. And, I mean, speaking about a better guide, I mean, we're going to look at areas of strength here. I'm going to say not too surprised, non-store retailers, those continue to do well. That's obviously your Amazon and online shopping. That was up 8.3%. We've talked about this here a lot as well, but food service and drinking places, that was up 5.3%. That, again, is something that if tariffs are terrible, the economy is terrible, that is going to be one of the first places you cut because that is truly a discretionary expense. And the last area that I was kind of surprised by was furniture and home furnishing stores. They were up 8.8%. So, again, those are some big positives that we saw from retail sales.
Yeah, and these are things that you have to kind of look at to understand what is really going on. And these numbers, the person that said that, well, beef prices are up, don't you go to the grocery store? We've said this many times before. We'll say it again. That report includes thousands of items. So just because beef and a couple things are up, you think maybe your inflation's up because you're buying beef. But a vegetarian, well, they don't care. They're not buying beef. So that's why it's a major report, and we report what the numbers are. And also, too, people got to realize This is nationwide numbers. And when you invest in the stock market or real estate nationwide, you want to know national numbers. Who cares about San Diego? You got to look at the national numbers. So very important to understand what you're looking at and looking at good data.
Yeah, and I do, again, want to be clear to people listening, and I've said this time and time again. I don't think tariffs net are good for consumers short term, and I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see retail sales again kind of slow down a little bit. I mean, I was blown away by that 4.6% annualized number. I mean, that is a very, very strong number there. I'd be surprised. I'd be hard pressed to think July, August, September, you're going to see that type of growth. Could be wrong, but I think that is, again, a very healthy level for the consumer.
And it's also important to understand that is 2024. 2024 was a decent economy.
Yeah.
Wasn't like way down, so we're not going from a low number to high number. You're talking about a normal economy versus now 12 months later up, 4.6%, you said.
Yeah, and I do got to say as well, it will be interesting. I'm sure you saw the Fed Governor Waller came out on Friday saying that, we could cut rates in July. And he kind of said, and President Trump has talked about this a lot as well, but, why are we waiting for the economy to get terrible before we actually start cutting? And I think there's some credence to that. The big question is, again, the inflation is, if inflation remains in check, I don't see why they can't cut. Again, a quarter point's not going to make a huge difference in the month of July, which I think would be a positive for the stock market here as well.
And I think we'll get one more report on retail sales, inflation before that happens. I think it could be a possibility to cut in July because you can't keep saying, well, I know that Powell says that he's, uncertain because of the tariffs. Well, that's then going to give you 2 strong months, actually 3 months of tariff data.
Yep.
And if you still haven't really seen, that's why we watch it all the time. If you really haven't seen anything major by that 3rd month, I feel kind of like, okay, maybe it's not going to be as bad as they expected.
Yeah, I mean, you can do one cut in July and then wait till September or something. And then, because I know Waller, I think, is a little bit more dovish, it appears.
Right.
I think that there's, 19 governors or voting members, and on the dot plot, I think 10 of them had 2 to 3 cuts by the end of this year, but then the other 9 had 0 or 1 cuts. So, again, these are all over the board.
Right.
We'll have to see meeting by meeting. I think Waller's an outlier. I don't think July is a super hot meeting where it's likely you'll see a cut. But I think it's starting to become a possibility.
And I don't know the exact date of that meeting, but I know it is after, I think it's July 9th is when the reciprocal tariff extension or reprieve, whatever you want to call it, is over.
Yeah.
So we should have either new data or things don't look that good, but we'll have more data there. So we'll see what happens after July 9th.
Yeah, and we'll be covering it here on the show.
Yep. Let's talk about